So, yesterday we got our first little taste of Black Ops 7 Zombies, with it becoming available for the first time ever in the beta. Now, there are a few things I really want to talk about and, get out of the way here. First of all, this is not a review of Ashes of the Damned. This is a review of the farm map, which is a small portion of Ashes of the Damned on the survival mode, which will be coming to Black Ops 7 Zombies in its entirety when it comes out. There will be 2 sections, I believe, and the farm map will be one of them. And of course, then there will be the full Ashes of the Damned experience with the Easter egg and everything. This, thankfully, allows me to talk about a few things that will concern me with, obviously, Black Ops 7 Zombies as a whole, because this is actually how the game will work. This isn't the curse mode. This is the full regular Zombies experience with the armor, with everything else. I don't doubt that curse mode will be available on day one, but anyway. I'm going to talk about a few things, and the first thing that's going to be talking about the overall gameplay and the style of the map. Style-wise, the game is fine. I genuinely believe that Black Ops 7 is an improvement in some ways of Black Ops 6 Zombies, where there's not many changes. I do believe stylistically it is a lot better, and there are some changes and things here and there that I think help a lot. For example, max ammo is refilling your equipment, your lethals and tacticals. I genuinely think that is so good, and something that Black Ops 6 desperately needed. It was very awkward having to constantly go and spend salvage to buy, say, for example, a Casimir device, or, for example, like a monkey bomb or something like that, depending on what you want to play with. I prefer the Casimirs because they're a lot faster, but it was a very strange feeling having to constantly do that when in previous versions of Call of Duty Zombies, max ammos would replenish everything, that being ammo, lethals, and tacticals. Whereas since I believe it was Cold War forward, they didn't do that. It was very strange. I personally didn't like it and think it desperately needs to change. And so they finally have. They actually made the improvement into the gameplay. So I think it's very good. There are a few things I want to talk about with this map. Unfortunately, the Wonder Weapon wasn't available on day one. I don't think it's going to become available in the beta. However, we were given the Ray Gun and the Ray Gun Mark II, which is available day one. Unlike, I believe it's Black Ops 6. I don't think Black Ops 6 had it day one. I believe it came out with the Shattered Veiled map, which allowed you to have the multiple upgrades, which, by the way, aren't present here. But there have been some leaks here and there that may indicate that in some way you might be able to get the upgrades. I wouldn't be sure how, but I think you can, unless it's leftover text and leftover code. It seems to imply that you can get the upgrades at some point. I don't know. Aesthetically, this map is absolutely the best, by far, thing we have had since Black Ops 3. Codename Pizza kept repeating that on his stream, and he is absolutely correct. Aesthetically, this map stomps absolutely everything. The only thing that I think Modern Zombies comes close to with this map is Terminus, being that I think it nailed that aesthetic that it was going for, but I don't think it competed with aesthetics like, Shadows of Evil or Der Eisendrache or, Zetsubo Nishima, Gorod Krovi, or even Revelations. I think it was definitely good, but this map just stomps everything. It takes place in the Dark Ether, of course, completely within the Dark Ether now. We get to play as, obviously, the OG4, which, by the way, I'm going to talk about later because there are some things about that I want to get into. But the aesthetic overall, absolutely fantastic. They can actually go like with the wacky craziness now within the Dark Ether, because if you didn't know, the Dark Ether is where the multiverse was sent at the end of the original zombie storyline. So everything that was there is here. References to Group 935. You even have references to modern stuff like the Janus Project, all colliding into this one thing, where you even got like the aesthetic of like some of the Dare East teleporters and things like that can coexist in this strange dimension, which I think is really cool. They really, for me, nailed the aesthetic of Black Ops 7 Zombies, and it would be interesting to me because I am worried at the moment, because obviously the aesthetic is cool for one map, but I don't want to have the same issue that Black Ops 6 Zombies had, where after Terminus, every map just felt the exact same in terms of view and the aesthetic in general, just outside, daytime, everything looks kind of normal because it's a world where the zombies outbreaks aren't so bad and the multiverse hasn't gone crazy with the Apothecoms of 115. So it's a very interesting take, but I really hope that the maps going forwards have, say, for example, different skyboxes, different color gradings. This map, Ashes of the Damned, is very purple. Now, that's quite cool. It's all nice and good within the Dark Ether theme, and because we know the Dark Ether from, I believe it was Cold War Zombies and D Machine, is very purple. However, we have seen that the Dark Ether, depending on location or maybe depending on the person in control, at the time, like the higher power living there, the god, as you would say, it can change color. For example, Cortifex turns everything very red. Even Ethereum itself becomes red. The crystals that you can get like loot from and stuff like that, they all turn red. In the Archon, I know it's a meme, but it's very green. We've seen yellow in the Dark Ether. You know, I really hope that the color schemes do change up and the locations do change up, because this map, I know I'm getting ahead of myself in talking about the whole map in general, but we know from gameplay and trailers that this map is a very mushed together thing with references to very different things and very different times in Zombies. For example, we have the Cosmodrome, which is literally Ascension. So I'm hoping that that isn't like the idea we go for. Going forward with Black Ops 7 Zombies, I really do want to see original content. I don't want the aesthetic to be spammed constantly like it was in Black Ops 6. I want things to look different. I want things to look very, very, very good. Now, anyway, I'm going to talk about the OG crew returning. So if you didn't know, I say the OG crew, but it's not quite accurate. We have the return of Nikolai, Takeo, Richtofen, and Dempsey, along with the other members of the Black Ops 6 Zombies crew with Weaver, Carver, Maya, and other people. And it's just a whole thing. I don't think Maya's part of it anymore, but I can't remember. But anyway, the whole thing's weird. We have different versions of the OG crew pulled from the multiverse. So say we have Richtofen from a timeline where the Apex powers, they won the war. So the Nazis had won in World War II. Say we have Takeo from the 1500s. He's pulled in as a disgraced samurai. Dempsey from Vietnam, and Nikolai from a different war that I can't remember where it's from. But these are all very different versions of the OG crew, but it's still them at heart. Richtofen is still manic. He's still crazy. I would wager that this version of Richtofen probably hadn't been turned by the Dark Ether after he touched the MPD, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But something to talk about is that, unfortunately, they were disabled in the beta, and they are still disabled in the beta. I don't think they plan on making them playable within the beta. I think they're available in multiplayer, but not in the beta at all. I think they might be available to play in the beta of the multiplayer, but they're not available in Zombies. I believe this may have something to do with maybe Easter egg steps being unfortunately discovered if they speak, or if they say something, if they interact with something. It's very strange. But anyway, that's all I have to talk about the OG crew. They aren't available on the beta, but they will be available day one at launch. So that's cool. Now, I desperately need to talk about the weapons. I ran until round 74, I believe it was, on my first ever game of Venedon Farm. I can't remember what it's called. I got to round 75, and post round 40, the game just becomes almost unplayable if you don't have, say, the ray gun or the ray gun Mark II, which seem to have been buffed. But unfortunately, there are some things I'm going to get into later. But the weapons do genuinely feel like they're shooting foam at the zombies past round 40. They are absolutely useless, even with double tap, which, okay, sure, you may be able to say that, oh, okay, you know, they'd be better if the augments were available, which, by the way, augments aren't available in the beta. These are the base versions of the perks, base versions of the weapon mods, base versions of just everything. So you don't have the modifications available or the augments to make them more powerful. But as it stands right now, Wisp T, I think, is far too weak. The new perk, I think the new weapons are way, way, way too weak. Even the shotguns, which usually rule zombies, are absolute pea shooters past round 40. They suck. They desperately need a buff. And even with double tap, they are absolutely useless. They desperately need to do more damage, or the zombies' health past round 40 to 55, and beyond, obviously, needs to be significantly nerfed. Now, staying within the realm of damage and the realm of zombies becoming a bit unfair in the higher rounds, I have to talk about the new boss zombie, the new elite zombie known as Zersa, the bear, the zombie bear that has like the beehive sticking out of it. This is an incredible elite zombie, one of my favorites by far, rivaling, I guess, my favorite being the Panzer Soldat. This is like the closest it gets. It's an awesome special zombie, elite zombie, sorry. And the only problem I have with it is that post round, say, I think it's round 50, if I remember correctly, more than one spawn at a time. Now, this, by the way, is an actually challenging elite zombie. This isn't no amalgam. This isn't no, I don't know, Panzer Soldat. This isn't like anything like to scoff at. This is an actual fight. The effects that he has on you, if he catches you with a melee attack, he slows you down significantly. making you very vulnerable, and you take tick damage over time. It is a very, 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 very risky thing to get close to this boss zombie, and he has this sort of area of effects attack where he rears on his back legs and becomes vulnerable to the stomach, so you can actually do quite a lot of damage to him there. And then he rears up and he like sort of roars. There's a typical bear roar, and a swarm of bees take over that area that if you jump into, you will take damage over time. And he also has the ability to like essentially send out a swarm of bees that will come to attack you. But you can shoot at these little swarms to disable them completely, and then he'll maybe send out some more after a few, cycles. But overall, if you hit the weak points, you do stun the boss zombie for a little bit, but his actual weak point is his underbelly. And he is an incredible boss, but I do not like that more than one spawn post round 50, because simply put, with the weakness of the weapons, it becomes way too much to handle. If, for example, you get your hands on the ray gun or the ray gun Mark II, be it from, Wunderbar being the gobble gum available at the time, or maybe being you just get really lucky in the mystery box on the early rounds, he's very easy to deal with. But once you start getting into those higher rounds from 40 up, he becomes very, very challenging to defeat, even with the ray gun Mark II or the regular ray gun. He takes he takes a fair amount of damage, but it's not enough, I think. I think a few things that need to be changed with him is that he needs to be his damage needs to be slightly nerfed. They need to stop spawning more than one at a time post round 50. It is far too much for the player to handle. Or simply put, he needs to become exceedingly more vulnerable to regular bullet damage, as do all of the zombies, and obviously wonder weapon damage. Because unfortunately, I don't think that the Necro Gauntlet, the wonder weapon for Ashes of the Damned, is going to be a one-shot kill forever, and which is a desperately sort of needed thing in zombies. The most fun we have is like with your thunder guns and with your Wunderwaffe, weapons that can insta-kill into infinite rounds. We need stuff like that. We need it back. Otherwise, we're going to have some problems with the gameplay and the overall balancing issues of the game. But overall, Xerxes is a really cool boss. They really need to make one of them spawn at a time, and he really needs to take more damage from wonder weapons and regular bullet weapons. So anyway, moving on, we have something in this map. Oh yeah, he's back. Doppelgast. Yeah, they're back. Okay. They're significantly more tame in this map. Only one spawn per round after, I think, round 40. I believe it is, and they're very, very easy to kill. I think they're even more easy to kill than they were in Black Ops 6. But overall, why are they here? Why do they need to be here? It's so silly. They don't need to be here in the slightest, because especially there aren't any wasps in Farm Survival 1. As far as I know, they aren't in... I say wasp, but the things that come out of the vermin, I can't remember what they're called. But as far as I know, they're not in the full map of Ashes of the Damned either, from everything I could see. And it's just very, very strange. I don't know, it's very, very, very weird. They don't need to be in this map, especially with the other zombie type that I'm going to talk about later. Actually, you know what? I'll talk about them now. I think they're called Ravagers. I can't remember, or like something like that. But they're this really interesting new enemy that will sort of eat loot, and then either they'll run away, like out of the map, and they'll despawn with your loot, or if you hit them whilst they're holding your loot, you have a chance of getting a higher rarity loot. It's very, very interesting to me. I think they're very, very good. Something I've noticed as well whilst playing, I don't know if I'll be able to get footage of it yet, but if I do, I'll put it here. But there's a chance that they can sort of stand up and start banging like symbols together, like the monkey bomb. And I've seen that in gameplay. I don't know if it's just an Easter egg or if it's something they do maybe when they steal like a monkey bomb loot drop off the ground. But every time you kill one of these guys, when they're doing that dance, they drop a max ammo guaranteed. As far as I can tell, the two that I killed during one of my streams that I did, they both dropped max ammos. So maybe that's like a thing in the game. I think that's really cool. But overall, they are a really cool concept of an enemy. They're sort of like a fusion of the monkeys from Ascension and Shangri-La. More so maybe Shangri-La, I'd say. Yeah, they're more like a fusion from the monkeys from Shangri-La that will come in and mess with your loot and mess with your power-ups. But these guys don't mess with power-ups. And a fusion of like the denizens in terms of like speed and sort of like how they attack you and all that stuff. And something I've noticed is that unlike regular zombies, I think these guys can like double swipe you at like really fast. So when they do a jump, they sort of like front flip into you and they scratch twice. They're very interesting enemies, but overall, I think these guys are flawless. I don't think they need any fixing. These guys are cool. They can drop you like epic or legendary salvage, which gives you way more salvage than your regular ones. But yeah, I think it's cool. Overall, I did make a bullet point here to say talk about the augments, but I did it already. But yeah, I will reiterate that had the augments been available, maybe the ones from Black Ops 6 carried over and you wouldn't be able to unlock them for anything else. I think it would have significantly improved the gameplay flow, but not to the degree that it needed to. I still think the weapons desperately need buffing. I still think the wonder weapons desperately need buffing, and I think the zombies need nerfing. I think the Xersa needs to have one spawn at a time. And even then, I think it needs to take a little bit more damage. We'll see what the main wonder weapon does to this zombie, or this boss, but it will be interesting. Something that I also think needs to happen, by the way, is that it's something I noticed whilst playing, because the Mark II became like the only viable weapon post round 40. Like, and I'm not even joking. Like, in no word of a lie, it became the only viable one. They need to make a change. And that's wonder weapons need to be able to drop max ammos, man. Like, I'm sorry, it needs to be able to happen. I found myself constantly spamming the ammo crate and barely having enough points to scrape by on this mode. I don't know if it'll be the same in the full mode, but overall, it's really showing the flaws with the Black Ops 7 and Black Ops Cold War sort of point system that they introduced, in that it is incredibly flawed and they need to go back to the OG. They just have to. You know, I shouldn't be stuck at round 72 with 30,000 points because I keep having to go back to this ammo crate, all because the zombies don't drop max ammos if you're killing them, with the exception being the Ravagers, where if they're doing the symbol monkey dance, they drop a max ammo. That's the only instance in which they will do it, and that's not good at all. That it needs to be better than that. Now, something else I'm going to talk about is the trap on this map. The trap is really cool. I think it's awesome. It's a little like doll that dances on the top, and the noise it makes is super like creepy, really fitting with the aesthetic of this map being sort of a unknown, creepy environment where all these dark dwellings come from. You know what I mean? All these dark things go, because I think lore would imply that the Dark Ether like sucks in evil in like a weird way. It's kind of cool to like think about, but anyway, it's like a hub of evil that likes to eat it from the normal world. But anyway, the trap makes these like noises that sound like mixes of like babies crying and like shouting and screaming, mixed with like this weird music that attracts the zombies into this spinning saw blade. It's aesthetically, it's super cool. Very similar in spirit to the Blood of the Dead trap just after the main room. You know, you leave and you go into that one room with like the saw blade trap where you upgrade the magma gat. Like, it's very similar in spirit to that, but it's just, I think, aesthetically way cooler. It's smaller as well. It's a very small trap. But overall, if you stand in certain points, you are invulnerable to zombies. They will just walk into it. Elite zombies and doppelgasts and the Ravagers aren't affected by it, as far as I can tell. So I think like a good strategy for fighting Xersa in farm is, you know, you activate the trap, run around, do as much damage as you can, and then if you have monkeys, throw a monkey and then finish them off. Same with the doppelgasts. But like I said, doppelgasts just melt if you have the ray gun Mark II. So yeah, it's very interesting. And you know, overall, I think there are a lot of things that desperately need balancing with this game, which is hopefully what they're listening to with the beta and things that they're going to take into heart for the full release of the game. I'm really hoping they do. But anyway, I'm going to talk about one more little thing that we have available in the beta, and that's the tutorial mode. Really interesting, really, I guess, helpful for new players that don't have a good grasp on zombies. And I think they can tell that a lot of people are going to want to be playing zombies this time around, especially with it being in the beta. I think a lot of people that wouldn't usually give it a try are going to go, oh, okay, this seems like a good and reasonable way to level up guns and reach the level cap. I'll play it, but I'll play the tutorial first to get an understanding and a grasp of how to play the game, which is very important. The tutorial will walk you through like how to upgrade weapons, how points work, how augments work. Well, not so much augments in the beta. This will probably become available later on, but it will walk you through like the upgrading of rarity and weapon modifications, all different kind of things. It will talk about your specialist weapon, or I say specialist, but like your specialist ability, say like your Dark Flare or Aether Shroud, or, you know, among other things. It will talk about how to let you pack a punch. It will talk about how to travel. It will talk about how to, you know, progress through rounds and all that stuff. It's very interesting. And funny enough, there is a glitch available right now that I think they didn't look into, or maybe a part of the tutorial in the future. But if you're on the Venedon Farm tutorial and you reach the point where they want you to pack a punch your weapon, if you run outside to the launcher that will be available on the full map, it will actually send you to the spawn of the full Ashes of the Dam map. So you'll be in the Janus Tower spawn room, but nothing will be available to open. You can't glitch out. You can't do anything like that. You can just observe the spawn room where the Wonder Fizz machine for some reason is sat. So I guess we now know exactly where the Wonder Fizz is going to go. But overall, there are a lot of things that I think need balancing. Overall, I think the gameplay is perfectly fine, outside of things needing to be buffed and enemies needing to be nerfed and things like that. But this is all part of the process. You know, maybe they did say that they wanted the elite zombies to be very challenging this time around and have them spawn way less often, which is true. They do spawn way less often, but I think on solo, past round 50, having more than one spawn is far, far, far too much for the player to handle, and they desperately need to change it. But overall, I think with the new Gobblegums being introduced, sort of like the gift card one giving you 30,000 points straight away, making essentially the best setup option on zombies, I guess being run a Gobblegum pack with maybe Perkaholic, Hidden Power, and gift card gives you like the best sort of setup possible. But we'll see. I would personally run that for my first few games and maybe change it as it goes. But overall, I think all the changes are good. There is a new Gobblegum I will talk about very briefly, which makes it so when you reload, you sort of make an area of effect explosion around you, which kind of feels like a discount Electric Cherry, I'm not going to lie. But if Electric Cherry is somehow reintroduced to the game, this would be a very interesting way to maybe buff it. So you mix it with this Gobblegum and it becomes infinitely more buffed. That would be very cool. But overall, yeah, I think they're on the road. And this is going to sound crazy for me to say because Black Ops 3 Zombies is by far my favorite thing in terms of zombies gameplay. I genuinely think they are on the path right now to making a zombies game if they follow some good ideas, sort of like aesthetic stuff and all like that, and make the weapons work correctly and make good wonder weapons and good perks. They are on the way to make an experience that rivals, or simply put, is better than Black Ops 3 Zombies. And that is crazy for me to say. And, you know, Black Ops 6 Zombies, it had potential at first, but I think they really genuinely fumbled the bag. And it does go into me thinking that Black Ops 6 Zombies was never meant to exist in the first place. I genuinely don't think it was. Something in the back of my mind, you know, probably schizophrenia, is telling me that the original plan for Zombies would have been to have, say, for example, your Black Ops 6 crew and then your OG Dark Ether crew existing on separate maps at the same time. I think that may have been the original plan for Zombies, but that may be just like a fever dream of mine. Something tells me in the back of my head that was meant to be a plan. Black Ops 6 was just never meant to exist. It was always meant to be this game. I guess it would have been titled Black Ops 6, but, you know, spiritually, it wasn't meant to exist that way. But anyway, that's all I'm talking about. I can't give any review really on the full Ashes of the Dam map, unfortunately, yet, because it's not available. Won't be available until November 11th or 12th, I think it is. And overall, I am excited for that. And hopefully by then they've made some changes. And I will see you guys slaying some freaking zombies like the good old days, like we've always wanted to do. Hopefully we don't get too burnt out on this one, because I do believe that is a genuine factor in the decline of zombies, is that it's just people getting burnt out of the game mode in general. But yeah, that would be an entirely different video. So hopefully this one's fun. Thank you guys so much for watching. This one's been going on for a very long time, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. And have a new plays. Bye-bye.